Here's a quick brown Swiss grass-fed calf update. We're still going good with 100% grass-fed. I added some alfalfa pellets to her diet because I felt like it would be good to get something that's a little bit higher in protein than the hay, because we switched from a second cut mix to a first cut Timothy, which is just not as nutritional. But I'm very happy with how she's looking. She's very healthy and doing great, and we'll see how she transitions to grazing and finally getting to live with some other cows. And there are the yearlings, the 2 pregnant girls. The Swiss is actually 2 years old already because she took forever to get bred. But I'm excited to get these guys out of the barn, but it was so nice having them in the barn for winter. We had to fight the weather a lot less with them being covered in here. So I used to tell everybody that I had 6.5 acres of pasture because that's what I thought roughly. I do everything with paces. Does anybody else, we never had a roller measuring tape. So I know that my paces are 30 inches, and it's actually pretty darn accurate, but obviously not perfect, especially over like really long, up and down a hill and long distances. So I thought inaccurately with my paces, I had 6.5 acres. Well, recently I had my husband buy us a rolling measuring tape, and one day he went out because I'm setting up the pasture for this year, and he did the linear feet of all the fencing, and turns out I only have 5.11 acres. So I felt like I had a perfect amount of cows for my pasture, and I still do. I probably have maybe a little bit more cow than I need, but so it doesn't change anything, but I was like, wow, that's embarrassing to be off by that much. Like on a big farm, maybe you can like look at it and visualize wrong. But for my small farm, I'm like, wow, that was whatever. I'm not used to doing that. I'm bad at, somebody will look and say, oh, how many feet are things apart? And I'm never good at it. So that's not my strong suit. But yeah, so we have 5.11 acres of pasture, not 6.5. And I'm still gonna get 32 days of paddocks, but I am changing up how I'm setting them up. So we can go over that since we're already talking about pasture right now. So I was just standing at the back of the barn there. Now I came over to our gate into the pasture, and you can see I have set up the lane. And basically, as you guys know from my goals video, my goal this year is to have 32 paddocks, which I will, but I decided instead of having 32 individual day paddocks that would be more long, narrow strips. As you can see, the middle goes all the way that way and all the way that way. I've decided to basically put 2 days in a strip, and I'll strip graze that section for 2 days. So it'll be more square than rectangle. I'll have, whenever I get all the paddocks set up, I'll have, a break right in the middle of it. So they'll be on this half the first day, and then I'll just take the break down, and they'll have the whole section the second day, and then move them. So it's not getting cows off the land every single day. I will have my first 2 paddocks on this side be individual size because it doesn't go as far to that edge of the property. But I'm still really happy with it because last year every piece of ground was touched by animals for 4 days before moving. So I'm effectively doubling my grazing speed while still increasing my rest period by a few days. And also it keeps, I like that it's more square. From what everybody says, cows graze more evenly the more square something is, and if it's more long and narrow, there's a lot more trampling than eating. So I'm happy with not doing it the perfect, I wanted 32 paddocks to have a full 32-day rotation, but I'm okay with this plan that I decided. So I'm essentially going to have 17 gates, like 17 gated paddocks, but it's going to be 32, you know, fresh grass 32 times. And then I just decided to do a single lane this year. The lane is 12 feet wide, which is pretty darn wide for a micro dairy, but we have a quad, and I felt like I want to be able to turn the quad around in the lane without having to jump into a paddock if I need. So I wanted to keep a little bit wide. What's crazy is if this lane, it's a little bit shorter because we did the measurements at 16 feet because of this gate. If we had the lane at 16 feet and then it's about 8 feet wide up to the barn, that is a whole entire quarter of an acre disappeared for the lane, which is crazy to me. But I mean, what else am I going to do about it? I need a lane because these are dairy cows and they need to be milked every day. Gorgeous daffodils all along the barn. I'll say this too, I am so grateful that this property, although not ideal for cows because it was a horse property, I'm so grateful that the cows can hang out in the front there. I can call it my sacrifice lot, but what it really was the horse riding arena, and I love having the cows on there. It is a bit of an eyesore on the property. So as the homeowners and the property owners, it's not the prettiest thing that people see when they pull into our farm, but having them on this sandy, dry spot while letting this pasture grow, I'm so grateful for, because I see fellow farmers who don't have this kind of option, and maybe they don't even have barns, so they have to have their cows out already. And I've seen some pictures where pastures are already looking like lawns, and obviously, as we know, that's not ideal for really getting the animals to get a good amount of their intake from pasture, but I don't fault anybody for using their setup how they can. So I don't know what I would do if I didn't have that. This year would have been really rough because it got so muddy, so I'm very thankful for it, but very excited to graze. I'll give you a little bit up close of the state of the pasture where we're at right now. I am extremely antsy to get out there, and I don't know, we'll see. Hopefully in the next week. So we've got some really good grown-up stuff like this. Here by the barn, in the winter they were up here a lot more, so it's a bit more beat up. And this is where I started grazing last year. See, there's all the manure from winter, which is breaking down fairly well. I mean, there's a lot of it. But I mean, things are looking pretty good. The back of the property, where it goes over a hill down to that tree line, it looks better back there. The cows weren't there as much during the winter because they like to be on top of the hill. But we are going to start all the way in the back corner to pick a new place. So whenever we start grazing, it's different from last year. Every year I'm going to pick a new starting spot to always kind of, to not have the same rotation. So I'm so excited. I will keep you guys updated when I get them out there. I don't know if I'm gonna put the heifers out first, if it's, you know, too muddy for the Holstein cows, but the heifers are light enough, or if I'm just gonna throw them all out at once. We will see. I have my annual vet check tomorrow. So once that happens, it's nice that I have them up inside, but after that, I am ready to stop feeding as much hay and let these cows do the work themselves.